Morena, kia ora koutou. Welcome everyone this morning to our council meeting of Thursday the 26th of October 2023. Welcome to our public that are in the room this morning. It's really great to have you here. I know some of you will be speaking to items on the agenda this morning, so we welcome you. Those online also welcome you, and welcome to my fellow elected members and representatives in the space, to our council staff that are supporting. Welcome this morning. We've got an interesting agenda this morning, so that's going to be good for us just as we work our way through it. So I'll start off with the council blessing, which I don't actually have a copy of in front of me. So, Councillor Hanford, could you do that, please?
Sure thing. Ia mātou e whiriwhiri ana i ngā take kei mua i o mātou aro e pono ana mātou ka kaha tonu ki te whakapau mahara huapai mō ngā hāpori i mahi nei mātou. Me kaha hoki mātou katoa kia whaihua kia tōtika tā mātou mahi mā te maia te tiro whakamua me te hihiri ka taia te arahi I roto I te kotahitanga me te aroha.
Kia ora. Thank you, Councillor Hanford. So we'll start into the agenda with apologies this morning. So as I mentioned before, apologies this morning from Mayor Janet running a little bit late due to the fact she's visiting the Trimmer family after the passing of Sir John last night. So I will take leave to, in a second, we'll stand and have a moment's silence for Sir John. The other apologies I have this morning are from Glenn Olsen, the chair of the Parapara Umu Community Board. He's unable to make it, and so Bernie Randall is here standing in his stead. Also, Bede Larissy, chair of Raumati Community Board, is unable to make it today, and Johnny Best is here in his place, replacing him. And we also have apologies from Andre Baker from Te Atiawa ki Whakarongatai this morning. So those are the apologies that I have. I'd appreciate a mover for those. Thank you, Councillor Hanford, seconded by Councillor Coford. All in favour? That's carried. Now, as I said, Sir John passed away last night. I know he has been unwell for a little while now. So while that is an incredibly huge, significant loss for our district, and particularly the Paekākāriki community, I know it is a relief for him and for his family after that stress of illness and that sort of thing. So, but I think it would be appropriate for us to all stand and give a minute's silence in honour of Sir John this morning. Thank you everyone for that. And speak of, the Mayor has just walked in, perfect timing. So we'll just adjourn the meeting while I switch out and Janet takes over the chair's role.
Kia ora. Thank you, Lawrence, for that, and wonderful that we have so many of Sir John's community here today as we acknowledge his incredible life, and we're all very sad for his family and for Lady Jackie. So I think we're up to item 4, declarations of interest relating to items on the agenda. Do we have any? Nothing under number 5 or 6, so we move to public speaking. So Lynn Sleeth and Richard Young, Kapiti Cycling Action. Welcome.
Are we switched on? Yes, we are. Thank you. Thank you.
Start when you're ready.
Good morning. We're speaking today to agenda item 10.2 concerning the staff recommendation to adopt option 2, mainly the adoption of a 30km/h speed limit around Paekākāriki School, but leaving the remainder of the township unchanged. My group, Kapiti Cycling Action, is an advocacy group for more people biking safely everywhere. The council paper earlier this year spelt out the real benefits of reduced road trauma from speed reductions in urban areas, and Richard's going to cover that. And we already have a successful 30k limit in Paekākāriki Beach Road, which makes for a safe and pleasant environment in the retail area. We note in the paper today that if the current speed setting rule was to be applied, this is an algorithm which takes into account a number of technical factors. If it's applied to the whole township of Paekākāriki, the safe and appropriate speed limit will be 40km/h, not the current 50. We also note that the Community Board has signalled a desire for a lower speed limit throughout the township, and that the Council's survey shows a majority of residents would support this. The staff recommendation seems to view the 55% score as insignificant, but in recent surveys of state highways users by Waka Kotahi, the majority have been against lower speed limits, and yet Waka Kotahi has proceeded with change and demonstrated significant benefits in reduced road trauma. I'm quoting 40% reduction in road trauma on State Highway 6 Nelson to Blenheim. Sometimes change is for the better. Did we all support seat belts when they were first suggested? Today, Council must show leadership here, rather than pandering to public opinion from a minority. There is nothing sacrosanct about a speed limit of 50km/h in an urban area. We have all grown up believing that it must be, but throughout the world this thinking is being challenged. Wales, for example, has just adopted a lower speed limit, 20 miles/h, I think that's 32 kilometres, in all its townships. The people of Paekākāriki have made a clear request for a lower speed limit, and this should be acknowledged. We support the Community Board request for a 30km/h speed limit throughout the township.
Tēnā koutou, katoa ko Richard Young. I feel like we're the Chuckle Brothers down here, sitting on the end here. Obviously speaking on behalf of Kapiti Cycle Action and also encouraging more children to ride to school and around their community. And again, I'm speaking in relation of the proposed speed management plan alterations for Paekākāriki. A child riding a bicycle or crossing the road in the village that's hit by an adult driving at 50km/h is 8 times more likely to be killed than if that car was going at 30km/h. They're also 3 times more likely to be killed by that same driver if that driver was travelling at 40 as opposed to 30. There are no meaningful time savings in Paekākāriki by driving at 40km/h rather than 30, and people in cars have no inalienable rights to drive at speeds higher than the community considers safe. Enforcement, encouragement, whether that be through traffic calming, peer pressure, are key methods for developing a culture of compliance within an area. I note that Council has gone to the time and expense of undertaking a special community consultation in Paekākāriki, and the community have expressed a clear majority to reduce the speed limit to 30 kilometres an hour throughout the village. Now, for some reason, the Council officers have ignored the will of the people on this. As I said, there are no valid reasons or rights for people in cars to be permitted to drive at speeds that the community considers to be too fast. There are no reasons. 30 kilometres an hour is a clear speed limit, no ambiguity, no expensive variable speed signs, no speed thresholds within a village. It's simple, but it is not simplistic. There's good evidence from around the world that 30 kilometres an hour is the maximum appropriate speed for urban roads where we place the value of children higher than the perceived rights of their adults to drive faster and save a few seconds. As Lynn has said, Wales has just moved to reduce speeds to very close to 30 kilometres an hour where people live. We all know that Paekākāriki is unique in Aotearoa. It's a strong and vibrant community with a long and proud history of setting trends and not being afraid to stand out as being different. When the majority of the community in Paekākāriki say they want the speed limit of 30 throughout the village, then council and councillors should embrace this forward-looking stance. It will save road trauma. It will also improve the health outcome by encouraging more people in the village to walk and cycle. Just because Paekākāriki is ahead of the curve, please do not find ways to dilute it and complicate it. 30 should mean 30. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Do I have any questions from elected members? Councillor Pravanov.
Thank you for coming along to speak today, and obviously we will be discussing this later or making a decision on it. Are you aware that looking at percentages, this is coming from my scientific background, looking at percentages is not necessarily the factor that should be taken into account completely, it also is the reasons for it. So whether it's 50 or 40, it has to be looked into deeper. Do you agree with that?
I don't believe we quote any percentages. Ours is based on global evidence of safe speeds and death and reducing death and trauma, especially to young people on the roads. No percentages.
You quoted percentages for what the community wants. The key thing there, would you agree the key thing is why those people voted the way they did?
I don't have any comment on.
I think Councillor Pervanos referring to the 55-45, which is in the paper.
Yes.
And I mean, as far as Mr. Luxton, I'd be very happy with that result. And I'm not being flippant. I mean, you listened to the community board earlier in the year, and you said let's take a rain check on the community. Waka Kotahi is doing this on all state highways, at least it was until the recent changes, and Napier, Taupo, Nelson, Blenheim, significant opposition. More than 55-45, more like 80-20, and yet they go ahead because they know it will reduce road trauma.
You haven't actually answered my question, though.
So, Councillor, we won't debate with public speakers. I think you've had an answer to your question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Wasn't an answer, thank you.
Christian.
Thank you, Matt. Richard, I've got a sort of a different question for you, because I know that you're be running a scheme to encourage walking and cycling the school initially in Raumati. So with this, I'd like to think we're going to go ahead with 30. So will you bring that scheme to Paekākāriki, and what sort of benefits do you think that doing so would bring?
Sorry, Mr. Judge, that's not really in the scope of the submission. I'll limit questions to details around the submission that was presented. Thank you. Do you have any questions around what was presented by our presenters today? If not, then I'll move on to the next. So public speaking time questions are about the presentation that was made, not any issues outside of that. So I've got Councillor Halliday.
Yeah, look, hi. It's a clarity thing, to be honest. I think I must have heard you wrong. Lindsay, at the beginning, you talked to support for option 2. It might have been, but what your general conversation seemed to be you're supporting option 1.
No, option 1.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I just want to clarify that. That was all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cofer.
Well, thanks for coming in this morning. Richard, would you say that the 30k limit would be similar to what the traffic is doing now? And also, it's only as good as the enforcement. Would you agree that we'd have to have speed cameras and things to make it realistic?
Firstly, in relation to what's going on at the moment, yeah, my day job is measuring speeds and monitoring speeds. I've not done any work in Paekākāriki. I'm happy to accept what the council officers have said in relation to speed, and that's published information through there. So I'm not going to answer that one because I think that's already been covered. In relation to enforcement, a speed environment takes three things. Enforcement is a very blunt stick, but is necessary. For example, drive down Poplar Ave, most mornings there'll be a police car doing speed enforcement through there during school time. No issues with that. Measures to make the roads go slower, whether you call it traffic calming, speed calming, along the waterfront, along the parade, it makes a huge amount of sense. It just makes it feel like it should be a slower speed through there. And the third one, and I'll speak from personal experience, Paekākāriki has a very subtle way of making things happen. And I think in a village like Paekākāriki, there is that huge community spirit that has a huge amount of peer pressure. And as they're finding in Wales at the moment, it's the communities coming together and saying, look, we didn't think this was a good idea, but actually we think it is quite good. It's a bit like, as Lynn said, with seatbelts. It becomes the norm. There is no inalienable right to drive down a road at 50 if the community doesn't want that. So I think it's a progressive thing. I think enforcement is probably quite low down on that because I think there are other measures that would be far more effective. And from knowing a little bit about the village, I think if it can be enforced there subtly, I think that will be a fantastic solution through there.
Councillor Cooper.
Thanks, Richard. Do you think that if, for example, we did lower it to 30, what's the purpose of speed humps when people are doing 30?
I don't believe that
Do you know?
that speed reduction measures were part of the submission that was presented today.
Only
feel
in
free to
respect of, I
comment.
said, I did say infrastructure changes, but
Okay.
nothing specific through there. So, don't
Okay,
mind.
feel free to answer the question.
I think I just refer you to the answer I gave to Councillor Cofford. It's a three-stage approach. It is the social pressure. It is changes to the roading in locations where you get a long straight road. There is an implication that either chicanes or speed tables, road tables, do require people to drive slower. And the third one is the final thing, which is enforcement. So it is a blend of those, and I'm not going to comment on which I think is what the blend should be.
Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, just a reference to cycling. You guys are the experts on cycling. Lowering the speed limit to 30k will presumably make it more attractive for cyclists to come down to Paekākāriki as part of our magnificent cycle trails that we have. Is there sufficient infrastructure to cope in Paekākāriki for cyclists, or there'd be presumably anticipating that there would be more required with more cyclists?
Well, we've got an excellent bike rack thanks to the locals. I was there on Monday, which was a stunning day. I was there on Monday, and there must have been about 30 people outside the deli waiting for a coffee. I mean, yesterday there were a lot of yellow bikes there. Yesterday, I mean, it is bulging at the seams with cyclists, and it's also bulging at the seams with people walking the escarpment. But then I'm sure the people in Paekākāriki are happy about that. Most of them, anyway.
I think also
Sorry, that question's also a little bit out of scope, so I think that's a sufficient
be
answer for
cycling.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if we could please keep the questions in scope with the submission that's been presented today, because otherwise this is a very broad topic and we could spend a long time. Maybe we'll organise another session to talk about active transport in general, but let's just keep to the content of the submission today. Thank you. Councillor Coe.
Yeah, thank you, gentlemen. I'm just a little bit confused about your perception of the survey because I picked up some contradictory points there. On the one hand, you stated that there was a clear majority in favour of option 1. On the other hand, you were saying we should basically ignore public surveys because people don't know what's good for them, e.g. seatbelts. So where do you actually stand in relation to the survey that was done?
Yeah, I'm just making the point that Waka Kotahi has been criticised for lowering speeds on state highways. You know, some of them quite significant, and some of the media has been saying this has almost been done in spite of public lack of support, and yet they've got the safety data to show that that's correct. Here, I think I'm not sure what the details were, but you were wanting to check with the community how they felt about this. You'd heard what the community board had suggested, 30k around the whole township, but you wanted to check with the local community. That's fine. If you'd had 80% of people against a lower speed, you might have said, well, it's a done deal. Clearly, it's not going to fly. But 55-45 is a quite a close result. So you look at the safety aspects because the community is not clear and decided. Richard.
I think Councillor Coe, we weren't party to the reason why the council undertook additional work in Paekākāriki regarding consulting about speed. I would have liked to have thought that the intention was to listen to what people were saying and to act on that.
So we should take the survey into account, or we should not?
Well, it's a factor. It's on the table, but there's 4 or 5 other factors as well. There's Richard's explanation about the road trauma.
I think also we're not party to what you consider and what you don't consider. That's not part of our presentation.
Yeah, I think we've had an answer to that question. Thank you. Right. Thank you very much for coming along today and for your excellent and detailed submission. Jan Nisbet. Welcome, Jan. We could talk to Jan about cycling all day today too, but let's keep it to the presentation, please.
Yes.
Which we're looking forward to, Jan.
It's a really sad day, and thank you for having the stand for Sir John. I actually stand here because I got hit by a Ford Ranger at 30 k's an hour. If it had been any faster, I wouldn't be here. So I'm pleading to try something. I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak. I'm a long-time bike rider, and at times biking has been my sole mode of transport. I've been a pedal-ready teacher. That's a GW-sponsored program, which unfortunately most of the teachers are now in Wellington, and they think this is a long way up. But it's working with 10 to 12-year-olds to teach them on-road skills. I'm also part of I run the bike library and the Kapiti Bike Library, just based in Paekākāriki, and I'm on the Cycleway, Walkway, Bridleways Advisory Group. So I feel I've actually got quite a good take on speed limits. What I have noticed over the years is that the bikes at Paekākāriki have gone from 80 bikes to about 8 bikes. And there's 2 things that are happening. There hasn't been the council used to have bikes in schools. That was a program, school active transport programs across the district. And that sort of activity helped promote bikings. So, and the other thing that's been happening is the Range Rovers and the Ford Rangers have been getting bigger. And parents say the vehicles are getting bigger. It's not safe. One thing we can do is we can change the speed. We can't change the size of the vehicles. I would ask you to acknowledge that the survey was a 54.5, etc., a 9% difference. That definitely gets you into Parliament. 1 vote gets you into Parliament. And it just had feelings of Trumpism here, that these people have said this, but we're actually going to do that, because we do know there are some people who are going to object to it. But I just go back to the vehicle that hit me. They were in the wrong. They were doing 30, luckily. Paekākāriki is interesting in that the physical structure of it, there are some narrow roads. There's some places where there's lots of parking, so you have to go out into the lane and it's narrow. But there's other places like the parade where it's like, I came down it this morning and I drove it at 30 and I'm going, I'm going to speak to a council, and I saw my speed limit creeping up. But if we had 30 in all places, because many of the roads you can only do 30 anyway, like Ames Street, bump, bump, bump. My road, it's got a big bend in it, and then it's got lots of cars. That's Ocean Road, so there's two 30k roads. Wellington Road needs to definitely be 30k's because there's the school, there's the kids. The worst place is Tuesday nights with scouts running backwards and forwards in the middle of the night when it's dark. That's really dangerous. You've said you'll fix the play centre. Let's fix the other places. It's an ever-changing scene. So I'm saying, be brave. My challenge to you is be brave. Walk your talk about sustainability and carbon reduction. And if we don't get kids into biking alternative methods of transport when they're young, we don't get them at all. Please, please be brave.
Thank you, Jan. Any questions? Councillor Halliday.
Through you, Madam Chair. Great seeing you. Great seeing you here today, and thank you for the presentation. Just point of clarity, and no disrespect intended. When you got hit, the car was going 30 kilometres an hour, not 50. I was just curious to know what the reasoning was, why it was going as slow as what it was.
Because it had come down my street. I always look very carefully coming out of my drive, but a little kid was running across the road, a little kid in nappies, and I'm going, oh my God. So I wasn't looking to my right. Mm-hmm. They had come round the corner and they were going quite slowly.
Oh, lovely. Thank you very much.
I was lucky. So was the kid.
So was the kid in nappies, I was just going to say. Mr. Judge.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Jan, thanks for coming along in your presentation. In your presentation, you mentioned that you are a pedal-ready teacher working with 10 to 12-year-olds. And bearing in mind you've said that in your presentation, what is the impact on speeds and sort of road conditions in terms of the acceptability to younger people, to our most vulnerable road users, to cycle on the road, and the attitude of their parents to doing so?
Are you asking me what's the attitude when we've got a group of kids all in their little fluoros and their little bikes and a big group out on the roads, or
yeah, what difference? So, what difference does having a lower speed limit make to the uptake of our most vulnerable road users, Tamariki, to actually cycling, in your experience?
Well, we were doing it at 50k's. Some parents would say we were reluctant, but they felt in bigger numbers and under working with, a tutor, and there was always 2 of us. I tell you what, teaching it at a 30k zone would lower my cortisol levels hugely. Can you have hugely and lowered at the same? It's sort of a bit of an oxymoron, but and just myself riding on a road where the cars are going 30 would make a huge difference to my, I'm always, I'm just really active. Get hit once and you're very, very aware.
Okay. Supplementary?
Yes, sure.
Okay. So you said that when they're in a big group and they're all in their fluoros, 50 because the size has a road presence, thinking about when they want to be riding or out and about individually, what difference would 30 or 50 make to their confidence to do that and the safety to do that on their own or in 1s and 2s?
Okay, I'll use what happened when we made Beach Road 30k's now. You can step out onto that without actually looking, and cars generally will slow for you because they know they're in a 30k, generally. There's been a whole calming there. It feels much safer. I'm not saying I do step out without looking, but there's that feeling that life is safer and slower.
Thank
And
you.
I'm asking that for all across our village, because you'll have to buy one more speed sign and put it at the end of Ames Street. Cheap. I'm saying 30 and speed calming on the parade, because you've got to take away that temptation. And the parade in summer is really busy, and it's going to, we haven't had a summer with Transmission Gully, have we? Because the increase in numbers of people we see at Whareroa and in Queen Elizabeth Park with their bikes, etc., is significant. Only because I asked lots of people where they come from. We haven't yet, reminds me, we must get hold of council speed counter
Jan, the
things.
question was around whether children feel safe at particular
Right, well,
speed
I'm
limits,
sure
so-
they will feel safer and their parents will feel happy.
I'm going to move on to the next question, which is Councillor Hanford.
Kia ora, Jan. I really appreciate you coming along today, and also for all of the work and the passion and expertise that you bring. Quick question, you mentioned that you're involved in a whole bunch of different groups, Cycleways, Walkways, Bridleways Advisory Group, and also the Bike Library and a multitude of others, I'm sure. What's your feel from having conversations with them about the perspective that they have on this issue of lowering speeds, and specifically the decision that's in front of us today? Have you got a sort of broader feel? We very much understand and appreciate your perspective, but I'm also just wondering, from the conversations you've had, what sort of mandate you think we have to make this bold decision today?
Yeah, I think the mandate you've got is that you did a survey and you would be going back on it. You'd be basically saying to somebody, sorry, you didn't get into Parliament because we don't actually like the colour of you, or the cut of your shoes, concerning a conversation earlier to our deputy chair. I think it actually would be a gutless decision to make it 40 and only restriction outside the school. I really do. I'm asking you to be brave, because it is quite close. But why don't we make it safer? You can't argue against safer for everybody.
Thank you, Jan. That's kind of outside the scope of the question, but very good answers, very fulsome answers to the questions today, and thank you for your passionate presentation, and I'm glad you and the baby are both okay. Paul Callister.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'm actually part of Kapiti Cycle Action as well, but I'm not speaking on behalf of them today. They've covered it quite ably. I've lived in Paekākāriki for 40 years, coming up December this year, and I've been on the parade that time. I've always argued that we should have lower speed limits and traffic calming, and in fact I was involved in the process to get the speed humps on Ames Street, and they've been very successful. But at the time there was quite a lot of opposition, people shouting, and they didn't have social media luckily in those days, but shouting loudly as to how it would ruin their cars and all those sort of things. So, you know, these decisions always will have people in opposition. So, as what Jan said, it really requires a decision that's quite bold from council. As I say, I have argued for a long time about these, and I'm particularly concerned about the parade. In a couple of sessions ago about the long-term plan, 28 households put in a submission about reducing speed limits on the parade and introducing traffic calming, and so we've been doing this regularly. It's a long straight road, and as Jan says, that anybody driving there gets very tempted to go faster. What's also clear is that from the surveys your own council does on a regular basis, a significant number of people travel faster than even the 50k. I think it's up to about 30% of the people on some of the surveys which you regularly do. I also saw, living on the parade, that during lockdown suddenly families were cycling on the parade, you know, kids wobbling along on their bikes and such like, which they can't do when traffic's going through. As other people have said, there's more traffic on the parade now, and the cars have got bigger, and if you've got a couple of double cab utes passing each other and there's a double cab ute parked on the side of the road, there's very little room. So if they're going slower, at least you can negotiate around that. As other people have said, also, it's becoming a tourist town, and that's a good thing for the economy. We see heaps of people cycling down there. Every Thursday, there's a group, the e-biking group come down. They're in their floros. They always go down the parade, and they spend a lot of money at the cafes. So, and you know, they are in their floros because they feel unsafe. I'd like to see it that they don't have to wear the floros. So I support 30k across the whole town. It's a small town. To get from one end to the other is going to save very little time if you've still got 50k. And my final comment is I was cycling up here from Paekākāriki today. I thought if I was in Holland, I wouldn't need to be here. You would be leading the charge, and we would have better cycleways and we'd have restrictions. So thank you.
Thank you. Timer just went off. Perfect timing. Do I have any questions? Mr. Judge.
Thank you. You mentioned in your presentation that you live on the parade, and households on the parade have long called for a lower speed limit and traffic calming. What are the specific reasons for that, and what sort of traffic calming would you like to see? Because I note that there's objections towards having loads of speed bumps like we have on Ames Street, but that seems to be sort of an old technology. What sort of approach do you think the residents on the parade would like to see?
Yeah, so when we talk to the residents, you know, people don't like speed humps, I get that. Chicanes are great, just narrowing the roads, fantastic. I mean, we've got no crossings down to the beach. You know, and if you go to places like Eastbourne, you go to Mount Maunganui, where it's all 30k along the front now, they have raised crossings, which are part of that whole thing. They're a perception that you have to stop. And it's sad in a way that the village is disconnected from the beach by that road. People should be able to flow across there easily. So I think there are traffic calming methods that are really simple, that don't go over speed humps, and I think, you know, the technology's there. So, you know, I also think, as Richard said, you know, you do need enforcement, you do need a whole range of other things, but I just think if that speed limit was there, most people would obey it.
Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Paul. That just comes to my question. If it's 30k, if there is 30k right through Paekākāriki, presumably that would take away the need for speed bumps, etc. So are you seeing that as being there's an as well as, or an either or? If it's low to 30, do we still need speed bumps?
Yeah, I think on the parade, because it's long and you look down it, there's a huge incentive to start speeding. I just think you naturally speed up. So if you did have a couple of chicanes or narrowing, you know, even you could have, they have little roundabouts on some places where there's intersections or whatever. I mean, I don't know what the answer is, but I just think you need systems that even the flashing light that you're going too fast.
Yeah.
You know, I see that when that's on the parade. I see it flashing red, and then I see the car slow down and it goes green. So, yeah, I mean, that's your expertise, not mine.
Oh, thank you.
I think you as in the council,
not yours personally.
Not you personally, Councillor Wilson. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Mr. Callister. Much appreciated, as usual. Julia Bevan, I presume you're here on behalf of the kura. This is our principal.
Kia ora tātou, ko Julia tōku ingoa, ko hau te tumu ake o te kura o Paekākāriki. So yes, I'm here to speak in support of the village-wide lowered speed limit in Paekākāriki from the perspective, I guess, of our tamariki. I've been principal of Paekākāriki School for a little over 8 years, and in my time there we have repeatedly asked council for either traffic calming, reduced speed limit near our school. I don't know for sure, I haven't done the research, but I suspect that we are one of the only, if the only school in the district where we do not have pedestrian crossings around our school. There's no traffic calming measures. As you know, Paekākāriki is a small place, and so children walk, bike, scooter, skateboard from all corners of our village, and they have no pedestrian crossings, they have no safe crossing spots. And a number of people, Paul was talking specifically about the parade. Wellington Road is also, I believe, an issue for speeding, and I sit in my office and I watch delivery trucks in particular speeding up past the school as they're heading to the brow of the hill just as you reach Campbell Park. And I do report concerns when I notice them, but we shouldn't be in that situation. And as a school, we utilise our entire village. So much like Paul said, you know, the disconnect to the beach, we want to be able to take our children down to the beach. It's a really important location for our science learning, local histories. We want to take our children to Campbell Park. We go down to Queen Elizabeth Park. And all of those things are extra challenging because we are walking on roads, cycling on roads where we've got the 50-kilometre speed limit, we have no safe crossing, we have no traffic calming. So we use our entire village. We go to the railway station frequently, either because we're commuting to the city or up here, to the museum, down to the tennis club. Our children need to be able to walk, cycle, scooter, skateboard around our village, knowing that they are safe. Their parents need that certainty. So that's, you know, as a kura, and on behalf of the children, who I believe were part of the survey, we are supporting and asking for that village-wide reduction in the speed.
Thank you, Julia. Councillor Coe.
Quick question, how many students do you have at your school?
We have just under 150.
Thank you.
Mr. Judge?
Thank you. You mentioned the need to move right around the village for the school and for the children. With regard to the other option that would just see a 100-metre zone, do you think that adequately allows people, the children, our most vulnerable road users, to move around the whole village safely?
No. In fact, I would suggest that that very small zone would only encourage more people to drive their children because, you know, they've only got a very small zone where they believe it's safe for them to walk into the school.
Okay.
And additionally, you know, it needs to be 24/7. So.
And you've referenced the time there, and when you say 24/7, because the proposal is to have half an hour before and after school only on school days.
Yeah.
In your experience, do the children move around the village outside of those times and say at the weekends and on holidays?
Well, yes, obviously,
Okay.
plus during the school day, and that's a really important one for us if we want to be able to take the children to other locations within our village. At the moment, we have staff who stand in the middle of the road on the brow to get us across to Campbell Park because there is no safe way to get there, and we know that that is a spot where we have had a fatality in the village, so it is a concern that we are crossing children across that road.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the opportunity from those almost rhetorical questions to provide us with more information.
Yeah, very well done.
Councillor Hanford.
Yeah, kia ora, Julia. Just a quick question. So you mentioned that obviously the number of young people who commute to the school using active modes is really high because we're a small village. Have you seen the numbers of people walking and cycling to the school and also sort of around the village increasing in the time that you've been principal, and also the numbers of people using cars as a way of either dropping their kids off or visiting the school? Have you seen those numbers decrease?
I have definitely noticed a lot more cyclists in the village. And a few years ago, you know, with the Moving March program that runs, Paekākāriki was the top school for kids cycling, you know, using wheels to get to school. And yeah, every single day our bike rack's full of bikes and scooters.
Yeah, awesome. Great to have that confirmation. Thank you.
Councillor Pravanov.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you, Julia, for coming along and speaking today. So I think probably the issues that you're talking about today are probably issues that all schools grapple with throughout the district. My question is, though, what percentage of children come to school, come and go from school either walking or biking?
I don't have the percentages, but I've worked in other local schools and we have far fewer cars dropping off children.
At your
picking-
school?
Yeah.
So there's a reasonably high percentage of children?
Because of everything's close.
So saying that, there would it be fair to say that parents consider them either walking or biking to school at present is actually safe?
I'm not sure that they consider it to be as safe as they would like it to be, but they are. I guess it's the nature of the village is that people want to get out there and, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Halliday.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. I don't want to take away anything from the fact that we don't have pedestrian crossings down there, because I think that's a critical oversight that we have down your way, and it's something that needs to be addressed. Just in respect to that, with regards to both options, there are going to be pedestrian crossings put in. There are going to be calming measures done, going to be signs up. Do you think it's quite important to ensure that once they are in place, the kids are using them and are being shown road safety around their using of them as such?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay, lovely. Thank you very much.
Mr. Best.
Thanks for coming along, Julie. Now, I heard from you about sort of safety for the kids and all that sort of stuff, and from all the other speakers today. And you did also mention a fatal accident, or I think, if I recall correctly, that was somebody that was not obeying the law at the time. But are you aware of any, is there a history of accidents or trauma with the speed limits as they currently are in the village?
We have had some near misses, particularly on Tarawa Street, near our side entrance. But thankfully, they were near misses.
But like the baby in the nappies.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Thank you. Thank you, Julia. I'm not seeing any other lights on. So thank you for your presentation today, and that draws us to the end of public speaking time, I think. I'll just confirm. Is there anybody else in the public gallery who'd like to contribute today? No, very good. So now we move on to members' business. Leave of absence. Just to note that we'll be dealing with that item after we deal with the annual report on today's agenda. So probably we'll have the annual report, a short break, and then we'll do the speed management. Leave of absence? Councillor Wilson, leave of absence?
No, I don't. I'm never absent. I love it here.
Because that's what we're on. We're on leave of absence.
Yeah, just that. Just back one. Given the high level of public interest here, is the annual the plan? My understanding is that would actually take quite a while. Or are you anticipating that's going to be quick? Because I would recommend that we move.
So I'll just double check.
Because it will take a while, won't it? You would think.
Yeah, we have externals online for the annual report, so we'll carry on with the agenda as it is. But thanks for the suggestion. Or staff online. So I'd just prefer to leave it in the order that it's in. I don't think the annual report will take too long because we've had a couple of goes at it, which I'll come to in a minute. So matters of an urgent nature, haven't been advised of any. Mayor's report, that's in front of you. I will just point out, I'll take it as read, but I will point out one thing that's not in the Mayor's report because I didn't attend because I wasn't well, but that was the pōwhiri for the hearings of Ngā Hapu o Ōtaki. And I'd just like to acknowledge that that was a huge event that happened, and had the opportunity to acknowledge that on a couple of occasions. But yeah, all the best with the outcomes of those hearings, and a massive amount of work that went in by Ngā Hapu o Ōtaki. So that brings us to reports. 10.1, the adoption of the annual report and summary annual report. And I'd like to acknowledge David Cochrane from our Risk and Assurance Committee, who's at the table today. This item has already been considered by the Risk and Assurance Committee. So, and also we've seen a draft of it. So today it's pretty much tidying up a few loose ends and approving some editorial changes. So it shouldn't take too long. I'd also like to acknowledge that Huruai Paki has joined us online from Ngāti Toa Rangatira. And I'll pass over to staff. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Your Worship. Morning, everybody. I will take the report as read, but I would like to hand over to David Cochrane just to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I don't plan to speak to the report itself, but rather to the process that we use, just so that those who weren't directly involved have an idea. The independent members of the Risk and Assurance Committee met with staff and went through the thing almost line by line, pretty much line by line. We weren't too many unturned stones, I don't think. A bit of arrogance crept in. We took the view that if we didn't understand something, then probably other people might not either. And so the fact that something has been a note to the accounts for the last umpteen decades didn't really cut much ice. If we couldn't understand it, we got it changed. We asked a lot of questions, and I think it's a plain English document. I'm happy to say it's a very good document because I didn't write it. I had nothing to do with it. All I did was critique it on your behalf. The auditor was highly complimentary of the staff, to the point where we sort of said, well, you should be reducing your fees. But and we were complimentary too. They've done a great job on it. It's an excellent piece of work. It's tempting to sort of go, oh, yeah, the annual report, we have, obviously it's annual, we have one every year. We'll just tick it and move on. But, I mean, the council is the biggest business in the district and the biggest employer in the district by miles, as far as I'm aware. And not only that, every resident is a captive contributor, whether they like it or not. They're paying through their rates or their rents, and using services and paying for those. So it's important to everybody. And it doesn't mean everyone has to read it, but they have to be confident. I mean, the public will go mad reading it. But it should be readable for those who want to read it, and I think it is. And it should be available. Just the fact that it's available means that they've got some assurance of what goes on. They don't need to ask questions. They shouldn't have to, because a lot of it should be in there. And if they do ask questions, we can point them to the report and say, well, the answer's in here. Here you go. That's it. And if that's not enough there, then they've got a starting point to ask more questions. And I'm all in favour of questions. So I'll stop there and see if there's any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Cochrane. Questions would be for staff generally.
Yeah.
So I'll pass back to Mr. DeHaas to continue.
You want this moved?
So is there anything further? Sorry?
Sorry, Your Worship. No, I have nothing further to say.
Sorry,
I'll just take questions.
It was a bit of a report standoff there. So any questions about this paper?
Yes.
Councillor Coe.
Something I should have picked up on previous occasions. In reporting against the economic development, there is 100% achieved against that. And the ED strategy was a 3-year strategy which expired in June this year. It contained a massive list of things to be done, many of which have not been done. And I'm just wondering how we arrived at 100% achieved on that front.
So what's the chain? I don't know if is there a question there? It's more challenging the content of the report.
No, I'm asking how we arrived at 100%, a score of 100% achieved for the ED strategy.
Okay, so the question's how was the figure of 100% achieved on the ED strategy KPI? Are you able to answer that, Mark? It's something we'd kind of need the particular staff here for. Chris, would you be able to enlighten us? It's a question that would have been good to have ahead of time, actually, so we could make sure that we had the right
it only came
information
to my
in front of us.
Just last night.
Chris,
I'm sorry. I don't have that in front of me. I wasn't expecting to get into that level of detail today. Are we able to respond to that offline, Liz? Councillor Coe?
I think it would be, to change that would be more than an editorial change. So I don't quite know how to deal with that. So I'm just going to park that right now and go to the next question while we have a think about it, because it's
Okay.
quite a curveball at this point.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Councillor Coford.
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just have a question. I think Mark covered it in his briefing, but page 16, 8.5 surplus, that relates to capital works, which does not represent cash. As I understand it, that was from government grants. Was that related to Three Waters at all?
So thank you. Look, the 8.5, you're absolutely right. The $8.5 million actually does represent funding that we've received for the Capital Works program. So it's a combination of funding from Whakakatāi as well as our development contributions, which then get used towards the Capital Work program. So it's not a permanent cash surplus. It's a timing difference.
Right.
So it wasn't related to the Three Waters.
Okay. Are there any cash or any anything in there which is related to Three Waters and also Whakakatāi? Is there a risk of those funds being repealed by the new government when they take office?
So at the moment we're receiving the sort of approved funding, tranche 1, federal funding, and we have to retrospectively apply for that. So the second tranche of that funding has been withdrawn. We didn't achieve a cash surplus from everything else. So we certainly haven't overrated. In fact, we've actually experienced a year with increasing costs, which has impacted not only the Capital Works program, but it's also impacted on our operating costs. But when you look at the finances as a total, you pull in all your external funding. So I think no, we don't run the risk of losing everything, because in terms of that federal funding, that tranche 1 is already we've already signed up to that.
Oh, thanks. That's very reassuring. Thanks. And just going back to the resident satisfaction clause 7 on page 6. Okay, it says that we've had a decrease of 6%, 64% from 70, and then it goes on in clause 8. From a national perspective, we've actually, how is it worded? We're trending upwards.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So what we include in the annual report is we include benchmarks. So we've obviously got how we've scored, which is the results of 800 residents going through the survey. But I think what's important is we look at how we are tracking against the national average, and research first provide us with that information. So within the annual report, there's although we're below the national average, you can see in the last 2 quarters our scores are lifting. So we're moving closer towards the national average. Obviously, our preference is to exceed the national average. So whilst we're not quite there, what's pleasing to see is we're uplifting in those 2 perceptions. So we are improving. It is a focus for council, and we're moving in the right direction.
Oh, thank you. It's just that I was confused with the wording there. It's to be trending upwards was very interesting. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for the question. Sir? Councillor Pravanov.
Thank you, through the chair. I have 2 questions. So in the body of the report today, the headings say implications on climate change. Previously, the request has been made to include the environment. I'm just wondering why this has not occurred in this instance in this report. It's actually in another report on the agenda today, but not in this one.
We'll take that away for future reports.
Yeah, thank you. I have a further question. So in relation to Councillor Coe, would it be fair to say that measurements, including the ED measurements, are based on our KPIs?
I'm coming back with a response to that at the end of the questions.
Right,
and I
okay.
think that'll be along those lines, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Halliday?
Through you, Madam Chair. It's more of a definition thing, to be honest, and Hara, you might be able to assist in this one. On page 12 of the appendices, or 7 of the annual report, it says, greetings from tangata whenua. And then the tangata whenua for the district are Te Atiawa, etc., which are our 3 iwi. I was under the impression that our 3 iwi are mana whenua for the area, not tangata whenua. Tangata whenua, people of the lands. Mana whenua, people that hold the mana of the lands. It's maybe semantics a little bit, but if we are going to use the wording, well, the wording is going to be used, and I stand to be corrected. I'm no expert at this, but I have checked it with some other people, and how we talk about that. So our relationship is with mana whenua. Of course, we represent wider tangata whenua with regards to our general role and everything, but our relationship from a working perspective and from this report is with our 3 iwi partners. So it's just really emphasising that.
Yeah, Hara Adams is going to respond to that.
And happy for it to be taken offline if need be.
Acting Group Manager, People and Partnerships.
Kia ora. Oh, it's on. Morena tātou. What's in front of us is what's always been in previous annual plans, annual reports. The engagement that I sought for this mahi didn't really have a big time span to achieve an updated version for this plan here. The LTP and other things also we're working on at the moment will be different. Rather than changing what's in front of us to reflect your question in terms of mana whenua, that is correct. It was just nitty-gritty details that probably I wasn't going to be able to answer and change with the time that we had. So keeping it the same provides the smooth in terms of what's always been.
Yes,
I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, so I guess we're in a transition period, and that'll probably be something that's ironed out in future reports. I think it's okay for now. It's been okay in the past. Yep, Martin.
Thank you for that, Hara. Reason I bring it up is because I'm picking that this wasn't transferred from one document to the other, because it's actually the comments from the chair of Te Whakaminanga, which I'm assuming was written for this report as such, so it should have been current. Just want to point it out, we have people here that are pointing out to us currently, the chair being one of them, about how we use the language. So I just wanted to emphasise it.
More like debate. The question's been asked and answered. Councillor Wilson?
No, that's cool. Happy with that. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Councillor Halliday. Councillor Wilson?
Yeah, don't want to get too contentious here, but just in relation to that, we have had Andre sitting here castigating us severely for not using mana whenua, and Andre's the signatory to this, so I'm not sure if it. So the question would be, has Andre had a look at that? It's not semantics, because he's given us a few speeches about how important it is. So anyway, just somebody have a look at that. A question for me was in relation.
So just before you moved on, what we'll do is, I know that Mr. Baker has had the agenda for this meeting and he hasn't come back with any comments, but we'll take that away and double check it, and I think it can count as an editorial change that can be approved under the motions today.
Yeah, that's all it would be. Yeah.
Are you saying he has seen it? Sorry. Just so we close that off, I think. Yeah.
That piece in particular was sent to Andre prior to this final report today. No feedback was provided, so I made the decision alongside Cheryl Gavin to put in what's in there, so something's
There's
there.
no reason we can't go away and double check, so thank you for pointing that out, Councillor Halliday. I think it's good.
Kia ora.
Councillor Wilson?
Yep. Okay. So I wasn't sure where in here, and David might be able to assist in this. The wash up around Te Urahi and the funding that was received is, and my understanding is that we had to pay some back, or there was a prospect that we might not have to upon request. So I just wasn't quite sure where that fit in here. Or is that still live? Yeah.
So just in terms of the repayment for Te Urahi, so I stand to be corrected, but I'm pretty sure that we actually processed the repayment to the Crown in August, so it's outside of this reporting period. So in terms of, we have reflected the grants that we received during 22-23 in the financial statements. Once the project was discontinued, we advised the Crown. There was a delay in terms of them clarifying their position, but they certainly did ask for repayment of the unused funds, which we processed in August.
Okay, no, that's cool. And just my last one, and this probably is a little more contentious, and I'm happy if this isn't the right forum for it, but I just wondered about the 500k for Air Chathams and how that is reflected. And I still think it is very much a live debate about a decision that we might make in relation to that. I know there may have been decisions made elsewhere, but as a council, I'm not sure we've actually had that yet. So I'm just wondering again, is that reflected? How's that? Yeah.
I'm very happy to answer that question. So the precise nature and the details of the Air Chathams loan is disclosed in the financial section of the annual report. I might just ask my team to give me a page number. That was a considerable area of focus by the Risk and Assurance Committee. So and it's been subject to audit. It's also been subject to conversation with Air Chathams ourselves. So at the moment, we reflect that we have an asset on our balance sheet, which is effectively the obligation of Air Chathams to repay the council. We have expanded the note to provide when council issued that. In terms of accounting standards, effectively we have provided a loan which should be repaid in up to 5 years' time. So you have to discount. You have to, in terms of the time value of money, $1 today is worth less tomorrow. So in terms of audit and accounting standards, we've had to discount that, which we did. You also have to factor in risk. So what we've actually said is we do discount. We discount, so 500,000 became 400,000, and then audits actually with any of our assets we're asked for impairment. So last financial year the council decided to fully impair that loan, so that we're not overstating our assets, and the position again for the 22-23 financial year, given that the airline industry or aviation industry is still building up to what it was, the decision was made to fully impair that loan. But there is a disclosure note in the financial statements that's how we're treating it for accounting purposes, because it's prudent to do so. In terms of the obligation of Air Chathams to repay that still exists, and that is very clearly stated in the annual report. Page 123 is of the annual report. It's in there.
I'm comfortable. Sorry, I'm comfortable.
I just have to wait for the microphone to come back.
Yeah, sorry, I'm comfortable that it's there and it's accounted for. It's just that it's still a live debate, and so it just seems an appropriate time to ensure that it is.
To confirm that it's accurately represented in the report. Yeah. Great. Councillor Pravanov.
Thank you. Through the chair, on page 98, we have information about our regulatory services, and here it says that 60% of our was not achieved. In the information that's provided there, unlike some of the other areas, it doesn't talk about the challenges that have potentially caused this problem. I'm just wondering whether that should be addressed.
Could you clarify what's the what do you?
On page 98, there's we have a graph there that says that basically 67% of the activities were not achieved. In the body of the report, there is nothing that really addresses why that has happened, other than processing time, and so is the reason that 67% of the work hadn't been achieved because of processing time, or is there other stuff? other reasons.
I've got a response from Mr Jefferson for that.
Thank you, Tēnā tātou katoa, through the chair. Thank you for the question, councillor. There is some commentary further down about the animal management 1 hour response time to urgent complaints, and that is a systems error. We have checked 3 times manually that we are responding within the 1 hour, but what happens is the service request is left open for the officers to take further action and enforcement action, and this was caught late in the piece. We have done the calculation manually in other years, and it's been accepted. The auditor was a little uncomfortable, so we've left it with that caveat on there that a manual check has revealed that we've done, but the systems that we report out of don't capture it in the right way. So we'll do some systems change. That's in relation to the unachieved for animal management. And yes, we could go into a lengthy commentary on the resource consenting, but they are largely, as I indicated in emails to you last week, they are largely quality of application, complexity, and workforce issues in terms of being able to attract and retain senior planners. So we farm some of those more complex applications out to consultants who maybe not as committed to timeframes as we are. So I could put a whole lot of commentary in, but I have provided you with some insights last week and some email responses. Hope that helps.
So I think the short answer is that the reasons why have been reflected into the report to the satisfaction of the staff and the auditors. If you're not satisfied with that, that's a matter for debate. Councillor Pravanov, do you have any further questions?
I'll leave that now, thank you.
Councillor Halliday, do you have some more questions?
Point of clarity, actually, Madam
Great.
Chair. It's just having a look at the Air Chatham's thing, but I noticed water conservation loans, page 123, just might need a little correction there. It says the period of repayment is up to 0 years. I'm just picking a figure hasn't been put in there. So I would have best intentions to email it, but more than likely wouldn't. So I just thought I'd quickly note it now.
Thank you, councillor. It's 10 years, so the 1 is for North. We'll make that minor.
We will make
the
that
ones, the ones through the middle. Well, it looks
Thank you very much.
The editorial, but material change.
There you go.
Councillor Coford?
Oh, just 2 questions, Madam Chair. Just I see there's a picture and reference to Blue Bluffs slip in Otaki Gorge there. I believe that there have been advances there. I don't know if you want to cover those, any planning advances, but this is just a comment, well, it is a question which I'm a little bit embarrassed to ask, but is council confident with their auditors, especially with relating to Paepram Airport, since they were instrumental in the malfeasant sale of it back in the early 90s?
I don't know. I think that's a question for the Chief Executive, actually, because it's a question about the veracity of our auditing at Council.
Thank you, Councillor. I can honestly say I've seen nothing to suggest otherwise, and so I have to take that on face value, obviously appointed by the Office of the Auditor General, so we take our guidance from higher, of course.
Yeah, I think the community would be asking a few questions along that line there, and thank you for clarifying it. It's a very real problem. Thank you.
I don't think we've established that it's a problem, but that brings us to the end of our you've raised something, so that's fair enough. We've reached the end of question time, so we're now going to go back to the question that Councillor Coe had around the KPI around economic development, and I have an answer from Chris for that.
Thank you. I just want to note that in the LTP, there is a description of how we measure our performance, and it does talk to the performance measure that is there, saying, firstly, that we will work in partnership to deliver the 2020 to 23 Economic Development Strategy and Implementation Plan. Our performance measure is the actions in the Kapiti Coast Economic Development Strategy and Implementation Plan are delivered, and it says our target for achieved is as reported annually in the Economic Development Kotahitanga Board report. So essentially, in each year of the LTP that we report in our annual report, the Economic Development Kotahitanga Board sets out what they're going to deliver for that year and then reports back that they've achieved that or not, and that's what that measure reflects. I think what may have been raised is the quality of that measure and whether there's an opportunity to refine that going forward. And I would say I accept that, and I think we have spoken about the need to tighten some of these measures which we're in the process of looking at.
But the annual report is about measuring against the KPIs that we
LTP.
currently have in the LTP.
And that's what we have done. So I just wanted to make sure that I had the right performance measure and I was able to respond, and that's what it is.
So Councillor Coe, do you have a further question around that? If you have a comment, I'd ask you to leave it for debate.
I do have a question. So the Economic Development Strategy is up until June 2023. Does that, so if that's been achieved, does that imply, should that imply that everything in the ED strategy, which comes up to June 23, should be complete by now?
Yeah, that wasn't my understanding of the KPI that was just read out, but I'll ask Krista to clarify.
Sorry. I think those familiar with the Economic Development Strategy know that there's around 60 actions in the Economic Development Strategy itself. By no means is this reflective of the strategy as a whole being delivered. I think a smaller set of deliverables have been agreed out of that strategy with the EDKB, with, I think, the acceptance that there's no way 60 actions could have been delivered in 3 years. So, that's what we're reporting on, what has been agreed to be delivered in the year, and that's what we're reporting against.
That's great, and there'll be a chance to look at that through the long-term plan process if we're unsatisfied with any of the KPIs in the long-term plan. Councillor Wilson?
I'm just getting ready to move it. Are we done with questions?
I think we're ready for that.
Done. Moved.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hanford? Okay, right of introduction.
Oh, just to say it's an excellent report, and I think most of the questions have been answered, well, to my satisfaction, and we'll find out if it's to others as well.
Councillor Coe? Oh, no, Councillor Halliday. Oh, Councillor Coe.
Look, yeah, I would just, following on from the discussion around economic development, I just think there is room for further clarity in terms of what we're reporting on against being 100% achieved. Maybe just some slight tweaking of the words there to really clearly explain that we haven't sought to achieve all of the 60 strategies outlined in the implementation plan within the 3-year period, and that there has been an agreement with the EDKB on what will be achieved within the timeframe. It's just, to me, this is a really, really important area, certainly for the business community, and it needs to be really clear and transparent as to what's actually been achieved.
Yeah, happy to take that away and make a minor editorial change.
Thank you.
Check with the Chief Executive.
Thank you.
Along those lines. Thank you. Councillor Halliday.
Through you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of comments more than anything else. First of all, I just want to thank the independent people on the audit and risk that you've gone through line by line, that took the time to do that and to get an understanding of how the report works, because something I certainly found coming into this, it's a little bit of a different beast, local government with regards to standard business world, so I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Look, I note that in our survey, we got a little bit hammered with regards to how we engage or how our community receives their information. But I note that I see the lengths that council is going to with regards to engaging with the community and getting information out to the community. I see it as currently being done, and as Mr. De Haas pointed, we're heading in the right direction with regards to things as well. I note all the things we've put in place around the vision work and the comms work that has gone in this particular year. I'm going to be very interested to see how that impacts on next report, and I'm hoping to see a bit of an increase there because we do need to address that. It's an ongoing issue, but in my opinion, we are heading in the right direction, and the vision work being top of that list. Easy to read report, and mind you, that's 0 at the minute. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Halliday. Councillor Spires.
Thank you. Councillor Halliday's really just said what I was going to say, but I just wanted to congratulate and commend Mark and the staff for such an excellent report. There's a lot more has been achieved than not achieved, which is really, really great. And I just wanted to thank Mark and the staff really on an excellent report. That's me.
Yeah, took the words straight out of my mouth. I'm happy to just took all that, and yeah, really just commend the staff for, as David mentioned, a really kind of easy to read plain English report, and love the fact that we're sort of pulling out some of those key stats right to the top. That list around the fact that we've had a big year and all of the things in numbers of just the scale of and the magnitude of which the requests are coming in, and the types of work that we're doing for our community. And I think that really paints a pretty awesome picture about the organisation that we are and the work that we do. That really has a tangible impact in the community. So just thanks for kind of drawing that to the top as well.
Yeah, just while we're along those lines, I'll chip in my little bit. Thanks for the report, Mark, but it is based on the work of all the staff, the results and the KPIs led by our very able Chief Executive who came on board partway through this, the period of this report. So I think it also speaks to the depth and the talent in the organisation that we achieved what we did this year, despite some quite significant changes amongst elected members, governance structure, and the Chief Executive. So, yeah, congratulations. And tōtoko the thanks to David, and please pass on our thanks to the other David if you see him. I'll see him on Saturday, actually, probably at the Mahara launch, so I'll be able to thank him myself. But, yeah, thank you to the two Davids and to the rest of the team. Councillor Pravanov.
Thank you, through the chair. So I agree with my fellow councillors in terms of this being an excellent report and the amount of work that's gone into it. And one of the things that I'd like to highlight about it is the other graphics. It's not just words, and so it makes it much easier to start to get your head around the stuff. And then, as David mentioned, the style of the writing makes it very easy. One thing that I suppose that for future, I think it's really important. So, particularly with these graphics, when you see when things haven't been achieved, is maybe actually explaining why that is the case, because people do zero in on that, like I have done. And, this, like it's important to actually, so we have achieved so much, but it's really important to explain where we haven't quite met what our KPIs have said. And I think also, as Councillor Coe has mentioned, that these measurements are based on our KPIs, and as councillors, it's really important for us to actually understand that, and to understand the importance of setting those KPIs. So thank you again.
Thank you. Right, a reply, Councillor Wilson, unless I've got anybody online? No?
Yeah, thanks. With recommendation B, which includes the editorial changes, so that's cool, that takes care of that. Just a couple of notes. A satisfaction survey is it's a snapshotting exercise. I'm pleased that as a council we only do the popularity contest at the end of the 3-year period, and we have another one of those. But in the meantime, you just have to do what you have to do. Sometimes it's popular and sometimes it's not. So those are our KPIs, which is good. Congratulations to the Davids and the audit and risk team for going through this. It actually gives some comfort to know that you've got people of that calibre going through this line by line. And as terms of the style of writing that Councillor Bravanos referred to, yes, I noted there's a bit of Dostoevsky in there, some Hemingway and a touch of Jane Austen, so well done to the authors for making it so readable. Yeah, happy to move it.
Right, I'll put that to the vote. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? That's carried. And we'll take a break for 10 minutes, which means we start back at 15:15 on the dot.